Good evening, everybody. Welcome back then to another LFM stream here for round number 4 of the Case King Pro Series in Season 16. And we are at the wonderful, wonderful location of Donington Park. My goodness. If you did not see last week's race at Masano, I strongly recommend that you head over to the LFM YouTube channel to catch up on all the 90 minutes of crazy action that we had there. It was a showdown for the ages. But in the end, the champ, George Boothby, managed to get himself to the top step of the podium with a stellar move out to the final corner, taking 2 for the price of 1 in the incredible battles that were taking place between Amadeo Castorino and Kevin Tadai as well. It was an amazing race from start to finish, and I have a funny suspicion that Donington might be looking to deliver the same. It is a true driver's circuit, and it also has that fun little extra factor of mixed weather conditions as well, as per typical of the British skies. And welcoming everybody, and a big welcome to all of those that, of course, followed since the last race as well. We are on a lovely round number right now. For those that like the kind of palindromic style numbers, 4,141 followers. Absolutely incredible stuff. And thank you so much for all the amazing support so far on this season. Glad you are enjoying the races as much as I am. And buckle in, everyone, because I think this one is going to be just as good. We can have a right mixture of fun around this track, because what it adds up to in challenges with those extra factors of the weather as well could make things particularly interesting for the evening. Kylo has already been enlightening us with, of course, wonderful stats from some of the very best on the LFM platform, and it is the likes of Luke Whitehead, the local boy, that would be a good bet for potentially pole position and race win, but it will be whether or not the likes of his car can dial it around this circuit. Of course, typically we have seen him in previous seasons in the likes of the Porsche. He's transferred over to the Mercedes for this season. It might be a little bit trickier to get that car dialed in, so who knows who might race to the top. And of course, we've had 3 different winners in as many races. We had 12 different winners over the course of the entirety of last season. Will we have our first repeat winner this evening, or will we continue that amazing streak? We'll have to wait and see. George Boothby is going into this round with a spring in his step and confidence riding high. being a circuit that he absolutely adores as well, so I'm sure it is going to be a very interesting evening of racing goodness. Practice is underway at the moment. Drivers getting their final few moments of opportunity to dial in those setups, get used to this amazing track. A surprising amount of undulation here at Donington. It does present some very unique challenges for everyone to get stuck into. And of course, when you throw in what will become very much apparent as we move over to this session, throw in those factors of some rain as well, it becomes ever more interesting. Of course, only 60 minutes of racing tonight, so strategically might end up being a little bit less dynamic, but it can also be a very interesting challenge for the drivers to take on, because they have that central 20-minute pit stop window that they need to serve their mandatory stop during the race. And depending on maybe if there are transitioning conditions, when that weather looks to hit, looks to fade away, how you deal with that, how you tune the car to deal with that as well, can be oh so pivotal to how your race ends up playing out. Big thank you to all of those following as we speak, and warm welcome to all of you. It could be a very interesting one this evening, and I cannot wait to see how our drivers get on. We can see Sasha Vassner currently making his way around as he dives into the pit lane in the Boatley natural territory for such a car. Meanwhile, Phil Menard down at the hairpin, currently going purple in this session. Of course, always a little bit tricky to see how this practice session is going to line up in terms of where they may qualify and where the race pace may be. We could have different conditions by the time we get into qualifying. We don't know what fuel loads these guys are using as it stands at the moment. So it's an interesting dynamic, but getting yourself ready for a race like this, especially when you do have those mixed conditions, it's so interesting about how do you actually tailor the setup of the car. Usually the dynamic is simply about whether or not you kind of focus for maybe something that's better over the course of one lap, try to get that grid position as best possible, and then put spring this up ready for the race. Or do you play the long game? Do you go for a car that's going to hold on to its tyres better, that's going to have maybe good straight line speed to help you defend, overtake other cars? When you then have a circuit like this with the chances of mixed conditions or just potentially even rain through and through, who knows, we are in the UK of course, that it just adds those extra factors that the drivers are going to have to consider. And that is, of course, you know, when they're practicing for a top-level competition like this, where every thousandth of a second is counting, those days of practice leading up to it, these final few moments of practice as well, become ever more crucial. So it'll be interesting to see how everybody gets on. I'm sure it'll be a fan favourite as Giardier coming back to the Pro Series in the Honda. Very interesting choice there, and actually could be a pretty handy choice around here this evening, as topping the timesheets as it stands at the moment. And of course that car has typically gone very well in the wet and has put on some stellar performances. We've seen the likes of Eric Del Fanta have a great deal of success in that piece of machinery as well. And in the wet conditions, it's natural rotation and agility in the platform. It takes care of its tyres in those situations pretty well too. So it's definitely a car with a very experienced driver behind the wheel as well, that could be looking to promote some interesting fights at the pointy ends. Great to see Giardier back in the grid. And speaking of those being in the grid, proud to have, of course, the team manager of Visceral Esports, who have been having a mega series of performances over the course of the last two seasons, welcoming in a new addition to their roster, David Rodriguez, who currently is in pit lane as it stands at the moment in the number 26 McLaren. We'll see how he looks to get on this evening. But a big welcome to Pranav, of course, the rest of the Visceral Esports crew. They have been absolutely fantastic across season 15 and 16, really rising to the occasion, putting on some stellar performances. That's one of their cars, the number 20, excuse me, actually, that's the LFM car. It's the Mustang making its way through the hairpin at the moment. We'll see if we've got any of their livery cars in the server for this evening. I'm not sure whereabouts in the field. Of course, we have the likes of Campanella in the field. Can't seem to actually click on him as it stands at the moment. And we've got a few blacked out cars, Pranav. We know how beautiful that Visceral Esports livery is. We'll have to see if we can get a few more of them in the server, perhaps, for the coming weeks. But those guys looking to put on another strong showing. Just over a minute or so to go in this practice session. We can see right now we've got Giardier top of timing sheets again, and the Mercedes of Grantis Carreras right now, currently sitting in P2. That also gives some hope for Luke Whitehead being able to potentially put on a good showing here. He is currently in the pit lanes, not sure what sort of pace he is going to be expecting to deliver, but I'm sure that he'll be pretty happy to see like-for-like bit of machinery going well around here at the moment. Actual fact, Grantas, as it stands, going purple in the opening half of the lap. Team McCarpenter finding good time as well for the Menard, finding 0.4 of a second. So, now to see if these conditions stick with us into qualifying. You might have noticed that rather rogue misplaced tyre barrier through the chicane. That never tends to last long around here. It's very pingable compared to a few different platforms where tyre barriers are kind of immovable movable objects. That on ACC, from time to time, they are sort of more a projectile that very quickly gets sent into the shadow realm. And when we move over to sessions, I don't think they will be hanging around on the apexes of those corners for very long at all. Grant Crackers crosses the line at the end of practice to go to the top of the timing sheets, making a Mercedes at the top step. And then we have Jardier and Tinko van der Velde at the pointy end of the field as well. Of course, the champion from a few seasons ago in the McLaren as well. So that could very much be a car that is strong in these sorts of conditions. Very good in the high-speed corners. As, oh, look at that. So it looks like for the most of qualifying, we are going to have dry weather. There is a bit of ominous shower 30 minutes in from now. Now, what we don't know is at the end of qualifying, 15 minutes, are we going to see the track condition deteriorating? So it could actually be these laps in the opening 10 minutes or so that things might all count for these drivers, and it is actually going to be the, statistically speaking, favourite for the evening, Luke Whitehead, in the number 2 car. Of course, two-time Pro Series champion at that as well, the only man to do it other than Marco Bischoff, and he'll be looking to return to winning ways. He knows how to put on some stellar performances. He knows how to hook up qualifying laps when it counts as well, and he'll be looking to make a statement in that Mercedes this evening. I'm sure seeing Grantas out top of time sheets as they're the first of the chicane projectiles gone. That's the pole, and I'm sure that there it is. The tyre barrier makes its way like one of those little old like rubber jacksons that you could throw around as a kid, bouncing around. That's suddenly out of the way, so no distractions for any other driver coming on through chicane. But we will go on board with Luke Whitehead opening out the final hairpin to maximise that exit, get every thousandth of a second that he can, and lead us for a round of Donington Park, making his way down the start-finish straight in towards Redgate to start with. Tricky braking zone in towards turn 1, maybe a little bit wider than he would have liked, but uses all the AstroTurf and a little bit more on the exits. He makes his way through the flat-out right-hander of turn 2, now into some really tricky corners. Crane occurs. Get the car hooked into the compression over to the left-hand side of the circuit, ready to go through Old Hairpin. Absolutely foot to the floor on the exit there, through the kink of 5, over Starkey's Bridge, and then up through the crest of 6 into McLean's. Long entry into this corner. Again, using all of the AstroTurf on the outside of the circuit. And then this tricky right-hander of Coppis. Patience on the throttle, especially if we are going to be running into some wet conditions this evening. Back end will be trying to let go on these drivers as we head down the back straight in towards the S's. Big commitment on the entry, trying to stay out the gravel trap on the exit, on the back. Big bit of correction there from Luke Whitehead. I'm sure he'll give that another crack at some point during the session, see if he can go a bit better. All the engine braking to get the car stopped in towards turn 11, Melbourne Hairpin, and then up to Goddard's End. A little bit of a blind entry here. Just as you head over that little crest, you can't quite see the apex until you're already at it. In actual fact, you can see Luke Whitehead setting up another run of the circuit. Not too happy with the opening bid there. It will be a 26.6 for the time being. What does the rest of the server look to do? 25.8 from Dario Emo. Dario Bay, it's 26.0. George Boothby has, I think, just gone to look to start a lap here. So I think that might be Jardier just ahead of him in the Aston Martin. Actually, that's Aidan Walsingham And it's going to be a little bit awkward for George Booth, but he started the lap right behind his teammate there. I'm not quite sure for last week's race winner. That's going to be the ideal way to get his qualifying session underway. But it is Dario Emolo right now, top in time sheets, ahead of Vincent Proel in the number 25 Ferrari. Of course, early doors in this session, but that's a bit of a statement, as is that from Philippe Menard. Of course, driver that had a great deal of success last season, rose very much to the pointy end of the championship standings and got his first win in the Pro Series after a very long-awaited result. It's had a little bit of a shaky start to Season 16, but maybe the Aston Martin on home soil can look to deliver some strong performance for the South African driver. Tinko van der Velde and then Grantis Korekas go to the top of the timing sheet. So for the likes of Luke Whitehead, he'll be seeing that definitely as a benchmark to get that Mercedes up to the pointy end. Also impressive stuff from Roman Villakopolski in the number 29 Mustang. Currently sitting inside the top 6, and there we go, there's the statement and a half from Luke Whitehead. The 25.4 just casually puts a quarter of a second over the rest of the field and the next closest Mercedes. That is a big lap time, although apparently not big enough, because look at that, Leon Burns in the next of the Ferrari 296s. Those are looking quick, not quite like that, but Leon has done what he needed to do on that lap anyway. And the 25.397, of course, that's going to be a car that should be remarkably competitive for this evening. There's a Visual Esports livery on board the Mustang of Sam Gaskell, because the Ferrari, very good in all of the high-speed stuff, have very balanced chassis as well. My goodness, there's also an absolutely huge lap coming from Tinko van der Velde, the Williams Esports driver, heading towards the line. It's going to be a 25.337, and that has similar strengths to that Ferrari 296 as well. A lot of downforce, maybe a little bit down on power, but you don't need it so much around here. It can help through some of the uphill sections. Won't be the easiest car to overtake with at times, but if you're leading from the front, you don't need to make any overtakes whatsoever. And in the mixed conditions, that 296, along with the likes of the Aston Martin, should be very, very strong and able to protect his tyres. So right now, McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, Nissan, Aston Martin, and then Mustang make up your top 6. 6 different manufacturers inside the top 6. That's what we want to see, as Dario Amelo might be about to make it a 7th, because it's a big lap time and a half from the Italian. And that Audi R8 for a long time has been looking quick, but never quite quick enough to disturb those at the front. But on a point 2, Iamelo looking very speedy. And he was looking competitive at Barcelona as well. Philippe Menard is on a blinder of a lap. Oh, he's lost a little bit of time down at the hairpin. Have to see what he can do towards the line. In towards Goddard he will go. It's going to be very close with his previous best. Has managed to maintain a couple of tenths advantage towards the line. He'll go to the front row. Not quite good enough for pole. What about Tinko van der Velde for provisional pole? Is very close on the delta again, but it is enough. It's a mid-point 2. And with that, he gets himself half a tenth ahead of Dario Amelo. My goodness, I tell you what, we have 8 minutes of qualifying left to go right now. It is not looking like this is going to be a predictable session whatsoever, and that is just the way we love it around here. I want to hear your bets in the chat right now. Who are you thinking is going to be on pole position right now? Tinko van der Velde looking quick, but so many different manufacturers, as that was Sabir Foch, I believe, going off into the grass. So many different manufacturers looking quick. Of course, Amadeo Castorino, championship contender, champion from 2 seasons ago. Very nearly multiple-time race winner from last week, but didn't quite come together in the end. Took some very valuable points for the championship. Currently 2 tenths up on his lap time. Would get him very much on pace. A beautifully executed hairpin. 2 to 3 tenths of a second, as he makes his way in towards the final hairpin. What's it going to be? Tinko van der Velde is finding time as well. He's finding a lot of time in that McLaren, as Castorino is going to go to the top of the time machines. What a final sector from the Italian. Campanella as well. Strong lap time from the Lamborghini. What can Tinko van der Velde look to do? There's the Mercedes of Luke Whitehead having another crack. And there you go. 10 minutes time. The rain will be with us. So they do need to get a bit of a shift on. Tinko van der Velde almost into a 24s. It's a 0.02 from the number 7 car. The young Dutchman, showing exactly why he is the champion of a few seasons ago. But he did take the championship. He did it in style. Nicholas Huben championship contender multiple times. And in this Bentley for the first time this season, currently 2/10 up. That'll be quick. Into the top 5 he should go. He does. Just 0.03 of a second from the Lamborghini. Big thank you for the kind words in the chat as well. And a warm welcome to all of you joining. It is going to be a cracker here at Donington Park, I can just tell. Because with this qualifying session, look at the dynamic, the difference between everybody. Very, very small. And also, look at the mixture of manufacturers that we've got here. We've got McLaren, Nissan, Lamborghini, Bentley, Boldly, Mercedes, Audi, Aston Martin making up your top 7. We've got a Honda and a Ferrari inside the top 10 as well. Just a fantastic mix. A big thank you, of course, to those that have contributed to the custom BOP that we have here at LFM. Makes these sessions, make these incredible Pro Series races ever more tense and giving everyone a wonderful shot at having some fantastic results. And Tinko apparently has gone 0.03 of a second faster than he was in practice. So imagine they would have been wanting the 24 from that practice session. Now he'll definitely be hunting around for it. Can he get together going? That was an awkward line for Leon Byrne. You saw how the car destabilized through the middle of the chicane. Started to really kangaroo its way around. Not quite like its predecessor, that Samir Foch belovedly nicknamed the Bouncing Donkey rather than the Prancing Horse. But this horse is going to go for another run at it. See if Leon can repeat some of that intermediate qualifying form he had earlier on. Was looking very quick, but needs to try to hook up every single one of these corners to challenge the likes of Tinko van der Velde, who really seems to have the bit between his teeth this evening. Lucas Schneckenberger improving further down the order as well in the number 28 Mustang. That car's going to be a little bit on the Larry side, I imagine, to have a good pace around here. And also George Boothby, he adores this circuit, currently down in 14th position, excuse me. Not where he would have wanted to be. And also, I imagine he'll be a little bit alarmed right now that his main championship rival, Schneckenberger, makes a mistake through a chicane. That's how easy it is to do it around here. Castorina currently sitting on the front row. Leon Byrne continuing on. We saw how things went for him the last time through the chicane. Does he fare any better? Hard on the brakes, down a couple of gears. That looked neat and tidy. That was what he was looking for. Maybe could have been a bit more aggressive, but it was neat. Even with the delta that he had before. He's going to have to try to hook it up in the final couple of corners, though, if he does want to improve. He wouldn't need much of an improvement to make his way towards the top 5. Those cars just in front of him, separated by just a few hundredths of a second. And well, Nightbot has already struck down for the first time of the evening. That's if anyone that is new in the chat this evening, which I think we may have a few have followed for the very first time, first of all, a warm welcome to the world of low fuel motorsport, and a warm welcome to Nightbot, who apparently, if you have any sorts of fun, you use any capital letters or emotes, as it turns out. Oh my goodness, that's awkward. Oh dear, that hasn't gone very well at all. Will strike down from above and ban any messages on immediate viewing. Tinko van der Velde didn't quite get the setup of lap there that he would have wanted. Kevin Dye, who was in a brilliant exchange last week at Misano, of course, was actually on his lap and was very much committed to running out the hairpin. Now, I have to see if the stewards consider if Tinko got in the way at all. I think it was more that Kevin could have made it a little bit awkward on the exit of the hairpin for the McLaren driver, but through no fault of his own. That was just unfortunate placement from the Dutchman. But you can see he's actually already 3/4 tenths down delta, so this is just going to be bits of a formation outlap style for the number 7 car. So he will have the opportunity to go for another lap by the end of the session, but with that incoming looming rain, track conditions are going to be gradually deteriorating. And now we like Nightbot. He's just a bit confused. It's not his fault. You can't go around hurting Nightbot just because he's a little bit obsessive of trying to keep everything in check in the chat. That he tries his best. He's a staple addition now here at the LFM channel. That's And much like the racing here in the Case King Pro Series, we wouldn't have him any other way. Maybe a little bit less, but we love him anyway. Anyway, as things progress in the final moments of this session, we've got David Rodriguez, new recruit to Visceral Esports in the number 26 McLaren on a lap at the moment. Currently a 10th of a second up on his previous best. That would look to move him a good few positions up the order, maybe towards the top 15. That'd be a handy little debut for the driver of that car. Shouldn't get too blocked into the hairpin. Looked a little bit awkward for a moment there. Number 30 car, in actual fact, really backing out of that one's let a few more through. And greetings from South Africa and welcome into the chat to, of course, have the likes of Philip Manar in the server. I think we've also got, do we have Luke Addison in here as well? I'm not sure if he's with us in the server tonight. Oh my goodness, what has happened to the Mustang there? I was looking at the leaderboard for a split second, and, well, well, that was Lucas Schneckenberger bringing a rather abrupt end to his qualifying session. I don't know if he was just rather displeased at the final lap he was putting together or what, really, but that was certainly a way to close that session out. So no more laps or improvements from the Mustang in the number 28 car. Philip Manar, though, good jumps up into P3 with a 25.2. Good lap, although it won't be any further improvement for him. So that is his session done and dusted with. Tinko van der Velde still out top of the timing sheet. He is just starting another lap now, though. So final bids coming in from drivers as we stand. Castorino, I think, it's not looking like Castorino says his session is done with, actually. So is this just an in-lap for the Italian driver? Doesn't look like it's going to be another pole position for the number 10 car. Through the hairpin he looks to go. And it will simply be a practice of the pit entry. So two of the contenders, Nicholas Huben as well, into the pits. Only the likes of Campanella now that might be able to challenge Tinko for pole position. We've also got the likes of Vincent Proel. 2 tenths up, 3 tenths up on the exit of the final corner, heading towards the line. Goes up into P16. Great jump from the Ferrari 296. Right now, though, Tinko van der Velde looks like he might have this one secured, but he might also about to absolutely strike fear into the hearts of everyone else in the server. He is giving it everything on this lap. He's gone 0.03 of a second faster than he did in practice already. But he wants that 24.9, and this could be the lap to do it. It would require something special in the final couple of corners. Timo Carpenter as well, actually finding a 10th of a second, a little bit further behind on the track. Can the young Dutchman do it out of the final corner? He goes to be very close with his previous best. Does he improve? Oh, not quite in the end. Great effort, though, from Tinko in the end, not needing to deliver any more. Timo Carpenter crosses the line. It will be P9 for him in the end, and that is qualifying over and done with. Tinko van der Velde getting himself to the pointy end of the timing sheets once again. And absolutely, what a massive letdown. Not even a 24. Absolutely ridiculous. Tinko van der Velde, of course, champion from a few seasons ago. And when he was leading that championship, he was such a formidable force to contest with. George Boothby gave it a good go throughout the course of that season. So did some other immensely talented drivers, but Tinko really was absolutely on it in that Audi R8. Now makes his way to the McLaren for season 16, but shows exactly the reason why he is championship winning material. And he's had a fairly good start to the season so far. Nothing too astounding. Had a good result at Misano, keeping himself at the pointy end of the field. Of course, had that penalty at late stages, which did compromise his ability to come away with a podium, but showed exactly what sort of pace and what sorts of aggression he was looking to work with. So perhaps here at Donington Park, things could be interesting once more for the McLaren driver. And of course, starting on pole position, he's given himself the very best chance possible to deliver something special as we look to make our way through the grid there. So Tinko van der Velde starts on pole position ahead of Amedeo Castorino. Not quite able to get to the Nissan GTR up to the top of the timing sheets again. Feels so odd still seeing that car now be a regular at the point Jeddah field, but once again shows what a remarkable job Amedeo is doing as well. Philip Manar starts P3. Great stuff from him. So he looks to continue an ever-improving performance across the season. Fabrizio Campanella, another standout from the grid. The Italian driver wasn't quite on the same level of pace as some of his teammates. Oh, okay. We've had a little bit of a moment in the server by the looks of it. And I think, was there a car out of position? I'm not quite sure. I think we'll just take a brief moment to work this one out. I mean, the good news is it could be worse. Because it wouldn't be the first time where I've had a moment disconnected from the server, but I do think we're actually good and going again. So we'll work our way back through the grid in just a second. And hopefully, fingers crossed, all things will be well. So as we look to get that back underway, we'll rattle on through these ones as we look through the grid once more, and fingers crossed no more technical issues on that front. But as I was saying, Campanella he wasn't quite on that level of pace and competitiveness as his teammate Kevin Tadai last week, but still was very, very strong on home turf and looking to be very, very strong again in that Lamborghini. So we head then down to Nicholas Huben in the next of the Boatleys number 5 car, starting in P5, with then Grantas Caracas starting P6 in the lead of those Mercedes. Dario Amelo starts in P7 in the Audi. Another good performance from the Italian driver, with Aidan Walsingham starting in P8 with the Aston Martin. Team of Confident, the next of those Boatleys. And I did see a mention of the Finnish driver might be a bit happy with the light rain that we seem to have starting off this race. Can't quite see it on screen at the moment, but I can certainly hear it pitter-pattering in my ears as we speak. Top 10 rounding out by Eric Del Fanta, and then Kevin Tadai, last week's podium competitor, starting in P11. Leon Burnt starts in 12th position ahead of a two-time Pro Series champion Luke Whitehead in the next of those Veloce. Canard's windscreen wipers already on, and coming on for a lot of the grid as well. George Boothby in the number 1 car, calls number 1 man on the NFM platform, and was number 1 last week at Massano with that fantastic double pass in the final 15 minutes of the race. He starts ahead of Felix Tansvin-Zahaka, and then Sam Gaskell, another driver that has been having a brilliant turn of form in recent races. Vincent Proel in the number 25 Ferrari. He starts just ahead of Martin Lawrence, the next of those Boatleys. Martin Lawrence continuing to have good form in this car. Johannes Price starts in 19th position. And then next up, it will be Michael Frey, the Swiss driver, in that Porsche Flat 6, which screams its way from the line. I do love a Flat 6. As Dario Bajic starts in 24th. Starts in the number 24 car in 21st position. New recruit to Virtual Esports, David Rodriguez, starts in 22nd spot with the returning fan favourite Jardier, beloved streamer, of course, in the number 11 Honda. He starts in 23rd position. Sasha Vassner, the next of those Boatleys, he starts in 24th place, with Samir Foch in 25th. 6th. We've got a bit of a shuffle here. Things are happening, but I think we're more or less okay. Now this is what's going on. So we've got Roman Villa-Kolopolski that's been shuffled a bit out of order in the grid. I don't know what's going on at this point. Anyway, always time Brendan was here in the BMW for 27th place. It's all right. Once we get into the racing, everything will be fine. We'll have enough chaos to distract us from things, I imagine. Anyway, Marco Schada starts in 28th place with Lukas Schneckenberger, who ended his qualifying in a rather savage start. He starts ahead of René Felder in the last of the McLarens, number 30 car, starting in P30, with Valentine Barrier, the Frenchman, starting then at the back of the grid in 31st position. So, with things looking to kick off imminently then amongst this very talented and packed field, we have 60 minutes of action about to be on the horizon, with Tinko van der Velde leading the way. You can see the rain now in that forecast. We have a light rain to stay over the course of the first half of the race, and we didn't have that in qualifying. So the question is, how does the dynamic change now between qualifying set in the dry and those that were competitive in that session versus those that have a car, have a driving style, a setup attuned and accustomed to the wet conditions. We will have to wait and see. As a little bit of shuffling in the back of the order once again. We had fireworks last week at Misano, buckling everybody, because I think we're going to have the same here at Donington Park for the 4th round of Season 16 in the Case King Pro Series. Tinko van der Velde returning to the top of the qualifying order. Can he return to the top step of the podium once more? We'll have to wait and see. Off the line then is even so with Amadeo Castorino. Great launch from the Nissan, who will try to go all the way around the outside, but Tinko's not going to allow that. There's big contact. Oh, a big ramification for a championship as well, as Carl's absolutely sent into a blaze. Tinko van der Velde gets away. Iemelo manages to jump up to P2, and it's carnage at turn 1 immediately. Philip Manar is further off of the circuit as well. The South African all the way down to 29th position. A disaster from his start on the grid as everybody makes their way through Old Hairpin for the first time. Tinko van der Velde 3.5 seconds up the road from everybody else, but we'll have to wait and see what the stewards make of that, because it looks like the concertina effect in towards turn 1. And Castorino, one of the unfortunate victims, George Boothby, managing to gain some positions out of that. Jardier also on the move further down the order. Samir Foch as well as they make their way into commerce for the first time. Pole sent flying as they head on through. Turn 8, power down for the Honda. Tricky stuff for these cars following behind. And technical description there, it was in fact a big oops from those that were bunching up in towards turn 1. And I thought for a second it was going to be Tinko van der Velde that was in trouble, but in actual fact, the young Dutchman was able to get away. Meanwhile, down to the hairpin, Melbourne hairpin, it starts to get really close down here. George Boothby losing out potentially to Sam Gaskell, who's trying to close the door across the front of the reigning champion in towards the final corner. They will look to go outside line for Sam Gaskell. Going to be tricky to hold it there, but he's giving some space. George Boothby respecting that line as well. You can see side by side in the background as well. Jardier and Leon Burns. Team McCarpenter already trying to cool down the tyres off the racing line in that Bentley as they make their way on down towards turn 1. But my goodness, what a dramatic start here. And we all so often talk about the fact that consistency is key in terms of these championships, and Castorino, who so often has been able to do just that, now has found himself in a little bit of a tricky position. So did Johannes Price for a moment there, went way off the racing line. Look at that, Nicholas Huben as well. Big loser in the opening stage of this race. We'll try to get a bit of impression. So here we go. So Jardier up 8 positions in the Honda. So is Oystein Brenham. 23 positions lost for Philip Manar. As we head up towards the point of the group, we've got Kevin Taddeus up 7 positions in the Lamborghini. Luke Whitehead has done the same in the Mercedes. Team Carpenter and Amadeo Castorino now trying to get off that racing line and cool those tyres. So those cars may be already struggling. And we'll have to see how the race progresses, but my goodness, dramatic scenes already. Sam Gaskell makes it 8 positions gained in that Mustang. And of course, that is a car that can make moves with all that power advantage. Poor line for Ada Walsingham through the chicane, diving up the inside of Vincent Browell. Oh my goodness, and absolutely boxed in. Jardier has gone straight to the back of that centre out to Leon Burns as well. Absolute chaos here at Donington. There'd be fireworks. I didn't quite expect it in this regard, but my goodness, what an absolute mess here at Melbourne Hairpin. Several cars sent into disarray there. Jardier absolutely nowhere to go. He has still got a lot of shenanigans to deal with in this Honda. We'll go on board with him. Nicholas Huben trying to make a comeback after losing out at the opening corner of this race. Around the outside, he will be sent in the Bentley, almost contact on the rear bumper of the number 11 car then. Jardier somehow is up 9 positions and they actually somehow gained. That's absolutely remarkable. Big slide there for the Honda driver, but unusual to see so many mass incidents early on in these Pro Series. It's been a while since we've had something like that, but it can happen when you are competing at the top level of sim racing. Meanwhile, though, Tinko van der Velde, as the Delta very much up and down as it stands, seems to be hovering around the 4-second mark and continue to pull away from these guys behind. It's Dario Iemelo followed closely by Grant Carreras, who's looking rather menacing in this Mercedes at the moment. As there's another yellow flag for Daniel. Philip Manar again! Philip Manar again! In the number 6 car, has had an absolutely torrid start to this race. He has got going once more, but that really, after a P3 starting position, that really does feel like a rather nail in the coffin scenario for the Mercedes driver. As again, another yellow flag. We've got Marco Schada and Velikol Polski as well that have gone in. So that's Roman, who's just got going once more. Tinko van der Velde sets a fast lap of the race. He must be wondering what the hell's going on behind him with all of this. Samir Foss scrapping away with all his time. Brenham as well. Mustang versus BMW. Mustang sent towards the outside line. Surely we'll have the horsepower advantage, although that BMW gets the power down beautifully. And number 20 car then sent back towards the outside line. Can he look to pull something off around there? Cannot. May have to set up the exit down the hill, but in these wet conditions, that's not something you want to be looking to do. Although Michael Frey is looking like he might be looking to do just that, as he got Johannes Price in the BMW. He's looking very racy. These BMWs on this wet surface. Oh, that's a big fight from Michael Frey. Quick hands in the cockpit of the number 21 car. How on earth did he catch that one? Johannes Price might have had a sniff there up the hill. Manages to just about hold on to this. Now Tinko van der Velde is having a Sunday drive. Meanwhile, Michael Frey is absolutely wrestling this Porsche around. I mean, those are they've got some drivers trying to protect their rear tyres. I'm not sure we're quite seeing the same thing from the number 21 car. Oh my, it's stressful enough watching it. I don't even know if he likes the drive. It's not quite optimal, although that's not ideal either. Absolutely gets a face for the BMW in the rear diffuser. What is happening here at Donington Park? They saw Bassano and thought, let's step that one up. And in terms of chaos, down towards the Melbourne hairpin, they look to go. Michael Frey continues to hold the inside line, defends from the BMW behind. Tinko van der Velde says, thank you very much, everybody, and just decides to lap a quarter second quicker than the rest of the field and pull away. But Michael Frey, somehow, after a lap to forget for so many reasons, managing to just about keep it all pointing in a straight line. We'll take a little bit of a look towards the top 10. Martin Lawrence, what a fantastic start from him as well. 8 positions gained in the Bentley. Fantastic opportunity to score some great points in that car. Number 23 car, driving very well at the moment and has the reigning champion ahead for contention as well. Have to see what he does. We'll also have a look at some of the steward inquiries. So, oh my goodness, well, okay, that's certainly going to change things. Grant Skorekas, the number 9 car, a stop-go 10-second time penalty for causing a mass crash at the start of lap 1. So that instance that saw so many cars sent around, it has been determined by the stewards that it was the fault of the Mercedes driver. So the pressure he is applying right now to Diamolo is going to be rather for nothing in the end. In actual fact, he's got a lot of pressure coming from behind in the form of Kevin Tadai. So, whilst he didn't quite start at the pointy end of the grid like he did last week at Misano, he has certainly worked his way up to it with a good opening start to race. A lot of no further actions from the stewards, but nothing else has been given out. And absolutely, yeah, most of the grid already has damaged. Tinko van der Velde sets another fastest lap of the race, as that is Jardier scrapping away with Niklas Huben once more squeezed towards the outside line. Huben trying to see what he can do as we go on board that front left corner. Firm attack from Jardier on the inside there, and a flashing of the lights from the Bentley. Not too happy was the German driver with that one. Felt like he was run out of racing room. You can hear that early upshift, actually. The Bentley does sometimes struggle to get the power down. It's a little bit leery at the best of times with those rear tyres. So that really early upshift, basically mid-corner for the Bentley before he started to pick up the throttle. Hear it again. So that drop in the revs, and it comes alongside with a big old clunk to try to keep the back end of this car planted to the ground. It's an absolute monster up the hill as well. Gains very heavily. And, well, oh, that's a mistake there from Jardier. Could be an opportunity here if Niklas Huben decides to risk it and go for a dive. He is going to show his nose up the inside. Jardier gives him racing room. The pair of them squirming on the power. I said it was tricky to get the power down here. And Sasha Vassner and the two Bowleys have come into effect here as Jardier under heavy pressure now from these two behind in towards the chicane. They look to go. They've got to be so careful about track limits around this circuit as well, especially through that chicane. Sasha Vassner, does he fancy an attack on to Niklas Huben? Not on this occasion. And I think the only one safe is Tinko van der Velde. If something happened to Tinko, that was your fault, not mine. I'm just saying it now. Meanwhile, coming into the pits is Grantis Karekas to serve, of course, that stop-go 10-second time penalty. We'll see where he emerges. Be very tricky and unlikely, though, for him to score decent points today. But clearly this race has shown that nothing can really be ruled out, because there is a lot of chaos taking place up and down the order. But this is why we love the Case King Pro Series, because you can never guarantee what's going to happen. My goodness. Tinko van der Velde, Dario Emelo, and Kevin Stein making up your top 3 at the moment, although Kevin under pressure from Castorino and Luke Whitehead as well, because we know that Whitehead has gone strong around here in the past. Go on board, in actual fact, with the Mercedes. You saw nothing. You go on board with Luke Whitehead in the Mercedes. Got Timo Carpenter lurking in the background as well. Let's see, where is that Nissan GTR ahead? Fast, absolutely rapid down the hill, out of Coppice Corner, but not really close enough to make a move happen there. What's the exit like for the pair of them through the chicane? It could be an opportunity here for Castorino. He is launching out the inside as they go into the hairpin there. Kevin has had to respect the racing room. Luke Whitehead is going to look to get involved with this one imminently as well. We'll take to the helicam to see how it all plays out. Lamborghini goes from holding that outside line to the inside line. Blocks in the middle of the circuit, unable to get the power down early for the Nissan GTR. And Kevin holds on to what is now a fight for podium positions. But you can see behind him, he's got 3 championships across the next 2 cars. And that's a big mistake from Kevin in towards turn 1. And they'll go side by side. Oh, this is a tricky place to do just that. We'll go on board with Luke Whitehead now, who's trying to get involved in the action. But Castorino is through. Castorino manages to gain the position with that power and acceleration advantage from the Nissan, and Kevin getting it all wrong on the braking zone into turn 1, giving the opportunity an advantage, but he's not done just yet. Trying to see if he can find an opportunity up the hill, but it's so tricky in these wet weather conditions. The cars sliding about all over the shop. But now Castorino, can he hold on to this place? Now he has secured it. Tricky, almost disastrous start for the champion from 2 seasons ago, but has managed once again to remain composed, get himself back into the podium places. In actual fact, he's only lost a position to where he started. So impressive stuff there, and this is so often what he has been able to do, and so often what you need to do if you are going to be looking to go for a title. Luke Whitehead getting absolutely nailed to the bumper of the Lamborghini there, managing to just about keep it clear. Enough proximity. Tinko van der Velde continuing to extend his advantage. We'll see what the lap times look like as they come across the line, as it will be a 30.660 for Tinko. And last lap, Amadeo Castorino, even with that overtake, did a 30.5. Maybe it's not over and done with just yet. Neither of this fight, as the BMW of Johannes Preiser was looking to make a move earlier on Michael Frey. Now under pressure from David Rodriguez in the Visceral Esports McLaren, and Valentin Barry from the back of the grid has gained 10 positions, might be about to try to make it 11 down the inside. He will look to go. The room is respected from the McLaren. You can see how close they were on the exit there through turn 1. But the Aston Martin gets the power down, gets a position taken, and up into the top 20. The Frenchman looks to go. Great racing there between the pair of them. Aggressive but controlled. And now Valentin continues his charge up through the field. I wonder what life has been from the perspective at the back of the grid, because our opening lap was just pure chaos. By the time Valentin arrived, and he must have wondered what on earth had taken place there. As the fight for P8 continuing to rage on. You can see George Boothby struggling in these conditions. He might love it around here, but right now with that car, I think, carrying some damage, it is not exactly happy territory for the Mustang driver, as he's got both Martin Lawrence and his teammate of Aidan Walsingham in tow and for company. Nicholas Huben again applying pressure to the back of Jardier. They're not close enough though to make something happen, as one of these drivers has gained 10 positions, the other one has lost 9. And that is George Boothby with 13 seconds worth of damage, and the key detail would be that he has a flappy bonnet, as that is not going to be helping the aerodynamics of his car whatsoever. So the Mustang, usually a rocket ship in a straight line, not going to be quite at its best, as Kylo points out a very important detail. In 30 minutes time, we will not have rain continuing any further on this circuit. Now, the question is, what do you do about that? In 5 minutes time, the rain is going, the pit window is going to open. then you've got 20 minutes to serve your mandatory stop. Regardless of what the weather is doing, regardless of what you would like to be doing, that pit window, central 20 minutes, that is it. With this scenario, surely we have to see drivers staying out as long as possible through this opening stint, because the track is very likely to go dry by the end of the session. But the question is, will it be these wet tyres that survive long enough at the tail end of that race? Do you look to also get the advantage of those wet tyres at the beginning of that drying phase? Or do you try to survive maybe for a few laps with the slicks and then make your way over to into a better phase of the race in those final few laps? We'll have to wait and see. Apparently, though, the Bentleys will be strong in those conditions. And absolutely, in fact, that's a good point. So that we may have drivers that are fueled up only for the opening 30 minutes of the race and might actually be forced to pit the halfway mark. And that could be a really compromising scenario for a lot of these drivers, as that was Leon Burns making his way past Rene Felder. And also a bit of a battle there still with David Rodriguez. Vantine Barrier applying the pressure now onto Johannes Price. Not sure he's close enough to make a move on this occasion. He is not. Interestingly, though, last 2 laps, both Iemolo and Castorino have been quicker on the power. Great exit for the Frenchman. We saw how quick, though, those BMWs were down the hill, and Johannes is able to hold on to it for the time being. Bit of a think going up the inside for Valentine there. Won't make it stick on this occasion. We'll go on board the McLaren of Rodriguez, fighting away behind the Aston Martin. A little bit of a wide entry for the BMW. Valentine definitely looking like the quicker of the bunch. But absolutely, fuel could also be a big factor here. Those that might be a bit slower at this point of the race could actually be benefiting big time later on if they do manage to nail that strategy side of things. Looking to go for the switch back. Timo Karpinen on Luke Whitehead. Can't make it stick down at the hairpin. And also, in the meantime, Eric Del Fanta has going to position, as has Nicholas Hoover now surely down the inside of Jardier. I imagine he's going to do very much the same thing to him. We'll go on board with Jardier. Does he look to try to send out the inside in towards the final corner? He cannot. You can see how much he's fighting the wheel on the entry. There's a yellow flag for somebody there. Who is that for? That, I think, might be for Philip Menard, who seems to have retired to pit lane, if I'm not mistaken. So unfortunate stuff there from the South African driver. As updates on penalty situations, the number 30 car, and that is Rene Felder in the McLaren, has a 15-second time penalty. And then the number 4 car, who does that belong to? That's Aidan Walsingham. A 15-second time penalty for causing a collision. That, of course, would have been down at the hairpin on lap 2. And I think... And then we've got a 5-second time penalty for number 30 again of Rene Felder for forcing another car off track. And I do believe we may be imminently about to see another penalty on the board in just a moment, but we will wait until we've had confirmation of that. So, penalties for a few drivers then, as Donington Park making life increasingly tricky and the weather conditions changing. Just as we talked about in the early stages of this race, even before the race had begun, how very much that can change things and change the situation extremely quickly. Mistake there from Jardier, I think. Out of Coppers could actually be in trouble here from Sasha Vasta, who might be looking up the inside, or he thought about it. Half defensive move from Jardier there towards that inside line. Stops the Bentley driver from thinking about it. Too much of a risk on that occasion. Meanwhile, Michael Frey sends it out the inside of Samir Foch, and that flat 6 acceleration surely is going to be able to stay in front of the Mustang in towards the final corner, and he does, although that's not quite the optimal line that I think he was hoping to take through there. Could be an opportunity on the cars for the Mustang. As meanwhile, Aidan Walsingham now has gone all the way around the outside of Martin Lawrence in towards turn 1. Great exit there. Won't really mean a lot because they've got quite a hefty penalty, unfortunately, for the number 4 car, but at least certainly in this fight, moving very nicely. Now, this will be interesting. The 2 Veloce cars. Clearly, Aidan Walsingham is the faster of the pair, but he has got a penalty that's going to completely drop him out of contention. So, not quite sure he'll be looking to scrap away all too much with his teammate. As then there's 2 more penalties to come through. My goodness. The stewards clamping down a lot of behaviour this evening. So, the number 31 car of Johannes Price has had a 15-second time penalty for causing a collision on lap 3. Not that that's his biggest concern right now, because it could be the presence of Leon Burns on the inside line, heading in towards Coppice Corner then. The Ferrari trying to get the power down. Look how much more grip it's got than the BMW. We'll stay on board this camera angle because I have a feeling this BMW might start to creep back in towards shot. Will it? Into the chicane they will look to go, but in the end, Johannes Price backs out of that one. Plays it smart and continues on. Meanwhile, Aidan Walsingham has decided to go past his teammate there. As in actual fact, that's caused George Boothby a great deal of grief, because now Martin Lawrence immediately going on the attack around the outside. These Bentleys seemingly coming into contention as the track continues to evolve. And down the inside, he is looking to go. Pit window has now opened. Turn 1. And George Boothby, a little bit of contact. 2 bits of contact there. I'm not sure that there'll be a penalty given for that. Maybe just a warning. But that was certainly a rubbing his racing moment of George Boothby's day. A circuit he adores so much. Not quite going the way that he would have wanted. Timo Karppinen looking increasingly strong in these conditions as well. As with that pit window open, it does open up the opportunity for strategic elements to start happening, but I just can't imagine seeing cars pitting, at least for the next 10 minutes. Maybe after that, I'll have to wait and see. According to F1, that'll be a 10-second penalty for George Boothby. No, I think it's only a 10-second time penalty if you take someone into the next postcode. I think that's the defining margin. I'm not sure if the FIA have updated the regulations on that front yet, but I think that's now the ruling on that side of things. Kevin, Luke, and Timo having a fantastic scrap between the three of them for P4 as it stands at the moment. And that's all. That almost came to blows there. Could have had a repeat and a second Veloce car getting a penalty at that hairpin, causing contact. Timo Karppinen flashing lights there. Probably felt a little bit backed up on the apex of the hairpin. I don't really think there's anything Luke could do. I think once he realised that he made the contact, he was just trying to get everyone to survive at that point in time. Look at this, though. Both those Visceral Esports cars moving over to the right-hand side, or staying on the right-hand side of the circuit to get off the racing line. For those unfamiliar with wet weather racing, very much at the high end of competition, especially when you've got transitioning conditions, these tyres can very much start to overheat, and they're desperately trying to keep those temperatures cooler into a window where the degradation is going to be less, where the grip, the slip mechanics is in a better state as well. So they're going into a place where there's more surface water on the track, and then in the process displacing that surface water, that they can look to cool down the tyres as well. And absolutely, yeah, certainly. It hasn't been the Pro Series finest day for clean racing, but it's certainly been another stellar evening so far in the opening 23 minutes of this race of chaotic, dramatic action from the Pro Series. So there are some things that are staying consistent so far, but yes, we haven't had a mass crash like, multiple mass crashes in quite a while. But these tricky conditions, the tricky technical circuit of Donington Park as well, playing havoc on that front and causing us a lot of drama. Meanwhile, Leon Bird having to back out that one in towards the chicane. Samir Foch almost closing the gap a little bit too much towards Michael Frey. Good run there from the Ferrari of Leon Bird. Meanwhile, you can see just around the corner there, Nicholas Huber's gone steaming down the inside of Eric Del Fanton. I think has got the move done. And this is Leon Bird trying to do just the very same thing. Samir having the slot behind the Ferrari 296. Does he think about a move in towards the final quarter? He does not. So both Leon Bird and Nicholas Huber progress on this lap then. Luke Whitehead. Oh, for a second I thought I had an opportunity. Also, Castorino within half a second now of Dario Amelo. The gap between P2 and P1 hasn't changed too much. Hovered around the 4-second mark, so the McLaren of Cinco just doing what he needs to do as it stands at the moment, especially if Castorino and Amelo do start to scrap behind, then very much could help him sustain quite comfortably that gap at the point to the end. Meanwhile, you see the pressure Luke Whitehead is under in that Mercedes. Timo Karppinen able to stay much tighter to the inside of the circuit, and to be fair, through the chicane there. You'd have to think this Bentley should be able to just glide through this section. Looks so stable. Imagine inside the cockpit, Timo Karppinen has multiple handfuls of opposite lock in the Bentley. It's very rare that you ever see that car pointing remotely in the direction that it is aiming to be in. And it does look like the rain it has eased off considerably. It hasn't quite stopped, and windscreen wipers still very much needed as it stands for these cars. But it is looking a little bit less dense than it was earlier on in the race. So, dry, it's rain stopping. It's going to take another, I imagine, 15 minutes or so until we really start to see that come into effect. But once it does, that could start to make things very interesting. Not actually a great lap from Tinko last lap around, 31.0. Now, compared to a lot of these guys, that's still multiple tenths clear of several drivers. But you've got the likes of Iemolo, Castorino. They were both 3-4 tenths faster than Martin Lawrence, Nicholas Huben, moving along very quickly as well. So, Tinko, he's keeping everything under control at the moment, but he's got to be careful. Got to keep it all together. And he's got to make sure he gets his decision around the pit strategy correct, because this really could turn things on its head if drivers do get it wrong and you happen to get one that just absolutely nails it. Grant Karekas as he's coming in. He's come into the pits, so I think he's just. I'm not sure if he's retiring from the race or not, though. In this instance, because it is in the pit window as it stands at the moment. Leon Burt now trying to progress on by Michael Frey, who will go on board with the Porsche, and you can see it's just as much of a handful as it was about 15 minutes ago in that flat 6 powered car, heading on down, screaming its way down towards the chicane. How does he fare? So many corrections required. Early upshift, trying to tame the rear end of that car. Just about manages to do so. Not quite able to stick with the pace of Oystein Brennan in front, and that's a big mistake on the entry. Leon Burns, I think, has actually slightly followed him as Valentin Barrier sends one from downtown onto Samir Foch. Gets the job done as well. Of course, those two pretty good friends. So I think the space was certainly given also. Although Samir, I do always sometimes feel a little bit sorry for him in terms of wheel-to-wheel battles, because he tends to give a country mile for everybody. He's not always quite shown the same level of respect in the other direction. But the place gained on that time around by the Aston Martin driver, Michael Frey, almost having an absolute, oh, that's not gone very well at all. It's continuing to go badly for the Porsche driver, almost clouting into the back of the BMW. And Samir Foch also has 3 warnings. We talked about that as well, especially at that chicane. It's so easy to get those track limit warnings if we wanting to avoid a drive-through penalty. Meanwhile, Leon Burton then on the charge up the hill as Samir unfortunately suffered those 3 warnings very early on in this race. It can happen. Big slide once again from Michael Frey. And yeah, I must admit, I have seen cars have more rear-end grip than the Porsche of Michael Frey at the moment. He is definitely trying to get the back of that car to stay in the same county as the front part of it. But Michael Frey now, so much more confidence at this stage of the race in this number 17 car through the chicane. They look to go again, another small moment correction for the flat 6 power Porsche, which will accelerate well out of the chicane. Surely an opportunity, not quite. And Michael Frey not able to get the car stopped. Typical Porsche, drive it like the rear is on casters. Absolutely is. But it's like it's like the world's fastest shopping trolley, isn't it? See just how leery it is for the Swiss driver to keep that car under control. But for the time being, he's just about doing so. Meanwhile, George Boothby losing another position to Nicholas Huben, who's an absolute charge at the moment. Huben, 30.8 last lap around, 31.6 for George Boothby, who I think is really struggling with that damage. 13 seconds worth of it, of course, on board the Mustang, and unable to really contest anything there with the Bentley driver. As the gap at the front, you can see Tico van der Velde has actually got a bit of traffic. It's granted Correca has come back out of the pits there. Of course, after that stop and go, 10-second time penalty, and the earlier stop. Oh, that was a little bit of a mistake there from Dario Iemolo. This could be the first opportunity for Amadeo Castorino, Luke Whitehead, and Kevin Zai scrapping as well, but it's the Italian driver diving down the inside at the first sign of opportunity. He reclaims that P2 spot that he lost in that big crash of the opening start of the race. And Dario hasn't put a foot wrong all race long, but immediately upon doing so, he has now released the GTR, and Godzilla is on the way. And he's been lapping very, very quickly. And again, Tico van der Velde loses another half a second to Castorino. I don't think this fight for the race win is off the table yet. Meanwhile, that's a big, big loss of braking point there from Leon Burns. He's just about going to hold on to position ahead of Valentin Barrier, the Frenchman, continuing his charge through the field, but not able to move any further ahead. And we did see Kevin Zai losing out there big time Luke Whitehead and Timo Carpenter managing to make their way on through. So not quite sure what transpired there. We were too busy looking at the scent from Castorino, who immediately has put a second on Dario Iamolo. And there is still 30 minutes of this race left to go. Who knows? He is so good, Amadeo. Especially at just keeping a cool head. Would have thought it was championship compromising, race-ending disaster in those opening couple of corners, but he just gets his head down, drives like he knows how to, and just continues to charge on. And he is already reeling in that gap as we speak, so keep an eye on that one. We could have a fight at the end of the race, especially depending on how these conditions look to change and affect the pace between cars as well. Around 10 minutes time until the end of the pit stop window. I'm sure we'll see a mass of cars coming into pit lane at that point in time. But the question will be, what tyres will they be taking? Will you have... Tinko van der Velde is in. Tinko van der Velde is in. So that was a point that was discussed earlier on, actually, with the likes of Kylo, of the fuel limitations for these guys, because there may have been drivers that just fueled up simply to make their way halfway through the race. And he can't go for slick to this point, surely. It would be... Oh, that's going to get super tight there between Frey. And there's contact. Leon burnt it towards the hairpin bounty. Barry might take the pair of them at this rate then. And Michael Frey comes into the pits as well. Unfortunately, ACC hasn't been quite as reliable at showing us the compounds with those marks on the side of the tyre wall. So I can't really guarantee, unfortunately, exactly what compound he is leaving the pits with. It says black sidewalls, which would suggest it is wet tyres, but also could be wrong there. But I look at there's no way that Tinko van der Velde right now could go back out onto this track. And yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Well, but I know that the black sidewalls are wet tyres, but I've also seen somebody. I'm gonna try if I can see if I can track them down. There was one. There we go. There is no way that Kevin started this race on slick tyres. So, unfortunately, I don't quite trust the that indicator side of things. But I would have to assume Tinko is on the wet tyres at this point, because there is no way that he goes back out onto this track as it stands on slicks. It's just too much of a risk. Meanwhile, Timo Carpenter, strong in these conditions, managing to make his way past Luke Whitehead. Then he's trying to fight it, but I think Timo Carpenter has the advantage here. But for Tinko van der Velde, that could be... Oh, it's going to be so interesting to see, because those that have maybe fueled up for a bit longer. So we definitely have confirmation that Tinko is on the wet tyres then. For those that have fueled up for a bit longer, as Kevin briefly brings out yellow flag, George Boothby goes into pit lane. Oh, that's not a very happy-looking Mustang, is it? As Sam Gaskell. So big moment, I think, down the start-finish straight or something for Kevin to die. And Sam Gaskell has ended up going on through as well. Kevin has had a really poor series of laps then, as Luke Whitehead makes a little bit of a mistake out of the old hairpin. But for those that can afford to go another 7 minutes, keep an eye on that weather forecast. Will we have dry conditions for a decent amount of the end of the race? If we've got 15 minutes of no rain, those slick tyres, they might be the way to go. And also right now, I don't think Tinko is going to be gaining an awful lot of lap time on those fresh wets compared to those that are still out there. It's going to be such a fine balance. It's going to be such a gamble for some of these guys. There'll be some that will risk it, feeling like they have nothing to lose. But will Tinko van der Velde end up regretting that decision? He's got traffic as well. It's not ideal for Tinko by any stretch of the imagination. Leon Burns has managed to make his way past Oystein Brennan on the exit of Coppice Corner. Managed to get the power down, use the Ferrari's capabilities to his advantage and get past the BMW. Has been taking up a rather large portion of the width of the circuit over the course of the last few laps. Aidan Walsingham comes into pit lane now, so you can see the cars and the drivers that were fueled up longer into this race. Tanvin Hacker is not quite one of them, as that is Nicholas Huben making his way apparently up a position. I think that's just the leaderboard having a little bit of a moment as it stands. As a big thank you to Pranav, of course, a major supporter of this channel, and of course his boys participating in the proceeds. But a big thank you for the subscription. It does so much help all of those hidden heroes responsible for putting on this amazing racing. And as we talk about amazing racing, Tinko van der Velde absolutely takes the words out of my mouth. He is quite clearly on pace and on the move right now with those fresh, wet tyres. So he will be looking to extend that gap over the likes of Castorino, Iamolo, Carpenter, and all of those behind. But yeah, it's all dependent upon whether or not those... There we go, 10 minutes time. 10 minutes time, the rain will stop. So we're going to have 15 minutes of no rain actively falling on track. I think those inters might... I think those wet tyres might survive. I think there's a good chance of those wet tyres survive to the end. And I'm not sure that the pace advantage that you get, especially when you've got to have 5 minutes or so of running, where the track is still drying and the slicks aren't going to be out their best, I'm not convinced that slicks are going to be the way to go in the second half of this race. But we'll have to wait and see. I think Tinko may have got the strategy right here, but it's going to be so tricky to tell. Track won't be better for drives for long enough. That's exactly my thinking as well. So between myself and those watching at home as being strategists on the sofa, we will come to our conclusion. We'll have to see what the drivers decide to do in the second half of this race. More cars coming into pit lane. The likes of Castorino and Iamolo aren't one of them. And you'd have to think then, as Michael Frey continues to slide around, Castorino, surely, if he is staying out in this Nissan, he's got this traffic as well to deal with. That's not ideal. Tinko van der Velde doing a 30.2. Remember, the rule in GT3 racing is that you just have to not defend. Oh, and this is very awkward. This is very awkward indeed for Castorino. Should dispatch of Michael Frey this lap, but he's lost a chunk of time compared to those laps gone by. It's not quite like in Formula 1 or other series where you have to actively get out the way once you're shown blue flags. You just have to not defend. I think Michael Frey has certainly taken that one pretty much to the letter of the law on that side, not to the happiness or pleasure of Castorino. But 3.5 minutes left to go of this pit window, and I have the feeling that looking at this, Iamolo now comes into pit lane. Castorino's just about going to avoid a bit of traffic on circuit, as that's very close as well, with Michael Frey losing out to Lucas Schneckenberger. So that's why he was probably a little bit less keen to move out of the way for Amadeo on that last lap, because it has cost him a position in the process. As you can see, Schneckenberger was having a little bit of hesitation as to whether to come out of pit lane. He definitely has a right to come out of the pit lane, but doesn't always make it the easiest. Meanwhile, Michael Frey continuing to have a bit of a wibbly-wobbly back end on board that Porsche 992. I don't think that car has been pointing in a straight line for the entirety of this race so far, as the rear positioning of that engine certainly making it a tricky one to keep a hold of. Meanwhile, Iamolo still in pit lane as it stands. The cameraman trying to work out where on earth we're pointing. New fast lap of the race from Tinko van der Velde, who has already gone past. He's making his way down the hill now. What is the advantage going to be? Oh, that's a big advantage. 9 seconds between Dario and Tinko van der Velde. So right now you're looking at about 7 seconds or so for Castorino. And so there we go. Big thank you for the insight there. So we've got Valentin Barrier and Aidan Walsingham now that are out on slick tyres. Aidan Walsingham, the lead of those two cars. As that is also Oystein Brenner, Grant Karekas, who was trying to make his way back through the pack. Of course, he would have gone onto wet tyres when he came into the pits fairly early on, diving it down the inside now of the BMW. Surely an easy pass to make, and he does indeed in that Mercedes. But have to keep an eye on the likes of the pace from Walsingham. It was a 32.5 on the last lap. That's not exactly screaming pace advantage. But Castorino and Timo Carpenter now coming into the pits. Still got Luke Whitehead and Martin Lawrence that stayed on out. And Jardier is also then on the slicks as well. So, on board with the Honda. And so, it's all going to be about survival. Oh, a lot of these cars started to look suspiciously like the Porsche of Michael Frey with these slick tyres. It's going to be about survival for the next 2 or 3 laps. And then it's going to be a question of whether those tyres ever get to the point where they are quicker than the wets. And the problem is, at this stage, with all this extra sliding, with all of the, they'll probably be operating well outside of their main temperature window as well. That can introduce some additional graining. Whereas the wet tyres, they're okay right now. They're fine. They are going to be gradually overheating, and they will run into degradation later on. But how much degradation they run into That's another question. How much of a drop-off will there be? Kolopolski, very close with Valentin Barry. How has Valentin lost so much time in this race? He must have had an immensely slow pit stop. I'm not sure if he had... Oh, of course, he had that 15-second time penalty. That's why. From earlier on in the race as Kolopolski sending one up the inside, managing to just about get it stopped. A warning given to Michael Frey for avoidable contact a few laps ago. And number 26 car, David Rodriguez, unfortunately a 10-second time penalty for him as well. And number 23 of... Who is that? That is Martin Lawrence, has been given a 5-second time penalty as well. So, despite what has been, generally speaking, a great day for the Bentley driver, not ideal from his perspective on that front whatsoever. So, pit window has now closed, and those last few cars have come on in to pit lane. And Luke Whitehead has gone on to slick tyres. So, there are a few drivers here going for that gamble then. As a big thank you once again for subscription. That is so kind of you. It is not mandatory in the slightest, but it does help ever so much, and it is so greatly appreciated for all of that additional support. So thank you everybody so much that has done so. And if you are loving and enjoying the incredible racing action, do consider giving the channel a follow. The Pro Series delivering amazing action and races like this every single week. Fantastic prizes up for grabs with the very best of the best, putting on some amazing racing. And then we go to point in question, Grant Carreras versus Aidan Walsingham. This is interesting, of course, because... as unfortunately Samir Fosh has just got himself a drive-through. Not quite what he would have wanted from those track limit warnings. This is a very good indicator. So you've got Grant Carreras, who's on very old wet tyres. We see Samir pull into the pits in the background. And Aidan Walsingham on those slick tyres. And he just has nothing. Absolutely nothing that he can do right now to the pace of these wets. So 32.8 last time around for Aidan Walsingham, a 31.5 for Grant Carreras. I'm actually got a little bit held up there as well. So there is a gamble and a dynamic between all these cars. Tinko van der Velde leads this race by 12.6 seconds in that McLaren. Now, just having a little bit of a look. I don't know how much we can trust it, but at least based on that, Amado Castorino apparently is on slick tyres, which you'd have to think he would be, considering how deep into that first stint that he went. So the question is that when the rain looks to disappear in about the next 3 minutes or so, can he and can anyone deliver enough pace to make that gamble for the slick tyres worthwhile? I'm just not convinced it's going to end up working out the way. George Boothby has managed to get a place off Martin Lawrence, as now Lucas Steckenberger battling with Kevin Tadai all the way around the outside. Down the hill, that was brave on the entry into the chicane. Manages to just about make it stick. That was a bold move from the number 28 car. A bit of a mistake on the entry as well from Kevin, as Nicholas Huben and Luke Whitehead as well squabbling away. We know that Whitehead is on these slick tyres. And I've got a feeling, look at that, surely the Bentley of Nicholas Huben is on the wets at the moment. Did the fastest lap, last time around of anybody. 30.420, 700ths of a second clear of Tinko van der Velde. Timo Karpman also applying pressure as well in another one of these Bentleys, setting up the inside of the Audi R8 then of Iemelo. Couldn't quite make it stick there. Early upshift once again, trying to get on power. Another couple of minutes until the rain stops landing on the circuit. But with 15 minutes left to go, is there really enough of a drop-off? Tinko van der Velde now leads by 16 seconds. These dry tyres are just simply not working. Oh, that's a big switch to the inside line then from Timo Karppanen. Manages to just about get it, kind of stops as Dario Emelo tries to go for a switch back himself. Contact in the middle of the corner. And I think Karppanen actually conceding the position on the exit there, having overstepped the braking zone just a tad in towards Melbourne hairpin, as that's a slide from Iemelo, who presumably is also on the slicks. I think George Boothby has gone out on these wet tyres, and what was a disaster in the opening stage. It wasn't looking great in qualifying. It was looking worse at the start of the race with all the drama looked to take place. But I think he's on those wet tyres, and despite the damage, he's made his way back up to 7th position. That could be crucial for his championship. He sees his championship rival, Castorino, up in P2 at the moment. And consistency is key. And that's a big slide from Castorino. Excuse me, from Iemelo then. And trying to squeeze around the outside. Surely not from the Bowley. Can't make it stick there on the entry. Each lap that goes by, those slick tyres are going to get a little bit stronger, but I'm not sure they're going to be strong enough to hold off the charge from the Visceral Esports car. But the cameraman can't see anymore, and he's gone into the gravel. Gone into the gravel. They're flashing of lights there from Teemu Karppinen. Did he feel like he was squeezed on the entry? The cameraman didn't even know which way to look. And there's Nicholas Hubert arriving on the scene as well, continuing his charge. Will surge back through the field. He is back up to 5th position. That's where he started this race. Remember, I think he'd lost double digits worth of positions at some point there. As Teemu looking to cool down those tyres. Of course, as the track starts to dry. And there you go. There's the rain stop now. So now, this is when it is crunch time. Castorino has already found 0.7 of a second relative to his best lap in this stint. Make that nearly a second. But the gap to the race leader is almost 20 seconds. Tinker van der Velde at this point could even start considering another pit stop if it wouldn't be far off in the grand scheme of things. I must admit, you know, looking at that pace and advantage, I do wonder if drivers done a pit stop at the very start of that pit window. What if they could have done another stop onto the slicks and actually managed to drive through his 15 seconds? Okay, probably doesn't quite work as effectively, but you know, so I mean, yeah, not actually as big of a difference I would have thought. But certainly Tinko van der Velde right now looking extremely comfortable out in front. Last laps were a 30.4 versus a 32.6 from Amado, so the advantage that the Wets have is still over 2 seconds. Castorino, though, taking another half a second out of that. So these slick tyres aren't getting faster very, very quickly, but you can see with this squabble that is immediately starting to once again come to fruition. Teemu Karppinen maintaining competitiveness relative to those slick tyres, but I get the impression that he's probably only got a handful of laps more until those slicks do become the better tyre to have. But I'm just not convinced that for the likes of trying to take the race win away from Tinko van der Velde that it's going to be enough time for the slicks to be strong enough to gain on those that pitted a little bit earlier. Grant Korekkas continuing his charge. He's made his way up to the top 15, considering that 10-second stop-and-go time penalty. Might even be thinking about a move up the inside here. He is indeed late on the brakes then in towards Melbourne hairpin, and that's a little bit of a shove. We'll have to see what the stewards say about that one. Vincent Proel still squabbling away on the exit, keeping him honest all the way in towards Goddard's. It's not an easy part of the track to overtake at. You see position immediately reclaimed by the Ferrari. Will be acceleration advantage though with the Mercedes all the way to the inside line. Proel looks to go in towards turn 1 side by side on the entry, trying to go all the way around the outside. Has managed to keep the car there, squeezed though by the Ferrari, so no opportunity prevailing for the Mercedes in hot pursuit then. Newest best lap time from Castorino, a 31.7. Dario Amelo, 31.4 last time around. And absolutely, so the rain has indeed stopped. Big traction advantage up the hill for Korekkas. Also a little bit of a horsepower advantage as well. Trying to go for the over and under now on the exit out of McLean's. And there's a 5-second penalty for Dario Amelo, I believe. I have to double check that one in a minute. Side-by-side action though, still with Korekkas trying to go up the inside through Coppice corner, as that is also Teemu Karppinen that's got the job done on Iemelo then, who drops a position, and now also has Hubert immediately on the attack as well. So these slick tyres continuing to not be seemingly the tyre of choice. The lap times are narrowing, but with 12 minutes left to go on the clock, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. Down the inside now, Grant Korekkas looks to go, and he's brought Sasha Vassner and Aidan Walsingham in tow as well. Walsingham at 31.3 last time around. One of the faster drivers on those slick tyres, as Korekkas again trying to go around the outside, unable to make it stick. Vincent Proel running him all the way to the outside of the circuit and cannot get the job done, so we'll have to wait for another opportunity. Meanwhile, it is the number 13 car of Diamolo for a 5-second time advantage, forcing another car off track. So that must have been that contact with Teemu Karppinen, and there's a mistake from Vincent Proel. Korekkas reads it beautifully, finds the gap, tries to go around the outside. He will go around the outside. I thought there was even a little bit of contact there with Sasha Vasta and the Ferrari. Meanwhile, in comes Walsingham, trying to go on the inside here into Old Hairpin, squeezing the Bentley to be outside of the circuit. Can he get the job done? We'll go on board the Bentley driver as they head up through the hill, and he does manage to make it stick. Vincent Proel also trying to find an opportunity to reclaim the position over Grant Scarecas, cannot do so. Iemelo dropping away from Timo Karppinen. So these slick tyres, I just don't think that these were the way to go. Castorino now within half a second of Tinko van der Velde's pace, but I mean, exactly, it's still damp on circuit, so these slicks just are not in a good operating window. I must admit, I'm surprised that so many drivers actually took the gamble. When you consider the level of undercuts, effectively undercut, that you were going to get from pitting onto wet tyres at the halfway mark, that the advantage that you get from doing that, and then the limited amount of time for the rain to disappear, I'm surprised that so many cars went onto the slicks. Apparently, Timo Karppinen gained 0.6 of a second. Indeed, he did. He's fastest car on track as it stands, other than Luke Whitehead, actually, last time around. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Luke Whitehead was on the dry tyres. So, it might be the case that the slicks and the wets have now rather evened out in terms of pace, but with 10 minutes left of opportunities, just do not see it being the overall net beneficial way to go. George Boothby managed to get those wet tyres to help him progress back up to P7. The problem is that they have started to expire very quickly, and Sam Gaskell is on the move, nearly by a second a lap faster of an advantage to Boothby, who will not want to give up these positions, but may just be simply forced to, because that is a big pace disadvantage. 30.5 for Tinko last lap, 31.0 for Castorino. It's, you know, for some of these cars, not all of them, but for some of them, there is still a half-second deficit to the wet tyres as it stands side by side on the exit of Melbourne Hairpin. As they go up in towards Goddard's. And it's a dive. Sam Gaskell surely has this one under control. Tiniest bit of contact. Fast lap for the race then goes to Luke Whitehead. So, 30.0 now. So that is half a second clear of anybody else. And so Luke Whitehead certainly on a charge of this stage of the race. Could maybe do something about Nicholas Hoopen up the road. 8 minutes left on the clock. 4 seconds is the gap. And half a second was what was gained last lap around. So it does look like we are at a point where the slicks, if you are able to get them to work, are the better tyres to have on your car. But with such a limited opportunity to really utilise that pace, I think for most of these drivers, it is not the way to have gone. Bentley Dry would never work because it doesn't heat the tyres as much. Interesting. So even between the platforms, there's a little bit of back and forth as to which cars may have suited which strategies. George Boothby, though, really struggling under increasing pressure from Martin Lawrence. And there may have even been a little bit of contact, actually, between Schneckenberg and Neustein-Brenham, as Kevin Today is also going to come flying on through in all of this. Does get the move done by the time they get to McLean's. And in the meantime, on the run towards the chicane, I think just power out of Koppis. The advantage of Martin Lawrence, who has a little bit of a celebratory wiggle. Having a great day. 10 positions gained for the Bentley driver. Could well be a PB performance from him in the Pro Series. Sasha Vasta makes way past Vincent Proel as Castorino now sets fastest lap of the race, a 0.37, a 29.9 from Luke Whitehead. So definitely a benefit now to have those slick tyres on board, but only giving half a second now per lap to those on the wets, as very much not going to be the way to go in terms of ultimate race time. So I think for those that looked to do a second stint on the wet tyres, especially those who were able to utilise those tyres in good, clean air before they started to expire so much, struggle in the latter stages of this race, have managed to play that one very nicely. Kevin Today trying to dive down the inside of Lukas Schneckenberger. Can't make it stick there. Will have to concede for the time being. Goes back into 19th position. Looking for an opportunity now down in towards the old hairpin. Can't do so, although on the exit, maybe as he made the position before. Although Mustang power is going to be a real problem. Up the hill, trying to see if he can find something in towards turn 7. There was barely a car's width. There wasn't a car's width on the inside line out, so he clatters into the side of Schneckenberger. Then Brenham now trying to go towards the inside line. The cameraman still doesn't know where the cars are, and the Lamborghini is sent out onto the exit curb of Koppis. The Mustang of Schneckenberger trying to come back onto the attack and on the charge there. Won't be happy with what Kevin did on that occasion. 29.5 now for Luke Whitehead. Gap now between him and Nicholas Huben, just 2 seconds. He is gaining a second a lap, so Luke Whitehead may well be able to get up into the top 5. Dario Malo as well is also now on the charge, as Karppinen starting to struggle in that Bentley to keep those temperatures down with those wet tyres. And the Audi driver that went onto the slicks lost time relative to Castorino, lost a position to Castorino after an unfortunate mistake. Now finds himself in still with a chance of getting a podium position, which would still be a great points haul to come away with in the 4th round of a championship. Timo Karppinen all the way to the right-hand side of the circuit, trying to keep those tyres as cool as he possibly can. But look at Luke Whitehead. He is very much reeling in this group now. By the end of this lap, the gap between himself and Nicholas Huben will simply be just a second. And he could have a great opportunity to do something special here in the last couple of laps, because Aiemelo and Karppinen are scrapping away. That's going to lose them time. Huben's not going to be doing very well in that. So Luke Whitehead, and we've got predictions there. Luke Whitehead, P4, dive down the inside from Aiemelo. These guys are continuing to scrap, and some contact there as well. Not what they need to be doing, and Luke Whitehead is right to the back of this group now. So keep an eye on the two-time Pro Series champion. 29.1 on the last lap of the race. Count Caracas coming under pressure as well from the Bentley driver of Sasha Vastno, I believe. He's trying to go all the way around the outside. And he's unable to make it stick, is he? He's being squeezed out to the outside of the circuit. Into the hairpin they will look to go. Can Caracas make it work all the way around the outside line? Be very impressive if he can. And yeah, Luke Whitehead, I have a feeling Luke Whitehead could be on for a podium here. He could very much be on for a podium here. He almost had a move up the inside of Nicholas Huben, and whilst it wouldn't be the win for Luke Whitehead, which he would have so desperately loved in that Mercedes, what a turn of form it would be if he can drive his way back to the podium positions. He's 7 positions up as it stands at the moment. Can he make it into double digits? And in the process of doing so, managed to get himself into the top 3. He's made his way up 1. Luke Whitehead blasts his way past Nicholas Huben, then just unable to keep with the pace of that Mercedes at this stage of the race. He must feel like for the first time in the Pro Series he's driving on easy mode compared to some of these cars. Those slick tyres definitely working well for him now. We'll stay on board with Luke Whitehead. He has a fantastic view of Aiemelo versus Karppinen then in towards the final hairpin, and Luke Whitehead licking his lips, trying to see what opportunities present themselves. There was almost one there on the inside line by Aiemelo, trying to set up the exit to make a move past Timo Karppinen. He'll be sent towards the outside line, in towards the first turn. And whilst P1 and P2 might be done and dusted, Sam Gaskell sets fastest lap of the race. The battle for P3 is well and truly on. Karppinen on wets. Aiemelo and Whitehead both on slicks. They touch twice, 3 times down the hill, in towards the crane of curves. It can go anyone's way into the old hairpin. Huben's out of this. He is a second behind already. But Timo Karppinen's trying to make that Bentley as wide as he can. And Luke Whitehead, he's sitting back here watching like what George Boothby did last week, trying to see if he can maybe even take the pair of them. It may even present it exactly the same way. He takes 1, he takes 2, through McLean's and through into P3 for Luke Whitehead. Well, if there's a theme with Veloce and double overtakes from the last 2 weeks, it's been demonstrated beautifully. Luke Whitehead shows his championship winning material, and he executes the perfect move on the exit there. And Aiemelo still on the charge, still on the attack, down the inside of Timo Karppinen, but he'll be angry there. He's lost out the opportunity potentially for P3 as Timo Karppinen and Nicholas Huben, the 2 struggling Boatleys, come together on circuit and almost come together on track. They do, with Karppinen missing his braking zone into the hairpin. Nicholas Huben then tagging him from behind as Oystein Brenham and Grant Caracas. Very close fight as well, but Luke Whitehead delivering when it counted most, managing to storm his way through there, and that was beautifully done. Tinko van der Velde still leading by 16 seconds despite fast lap of the race last time round from the Nissan GTR Castorino, although 28.8 from Gaskell, so you can see how much faster these slicks are at this stage, but not the way to, I think, have strategized the race overall. Granted, his tyres, his wet tyres getting very, very old now at this stage, and that is Kevin making his way past. I don't think Granted will have anything to fight with on the way in towards Goddard's. And now Vincent Broel sending one up the inside of Dario Bajic, makes it work with those slick tyres, and now looks to pull away from there. But Luke Whitehead, I'm sure, will be absolutely buzzing at this point in time with that move to make it back onto the podium. Just has to keep it neat and tidy to the end of the race. Meanwhile, there's still a very intense fight going on inside of the top 10. George Boothby trying to salvage as much as he can from this race. It's not been the race that he would have wanted. As meanwhile, we're about to Tinko van der Velde. He will have one more lap to go, not by much, once he next crosses the line. But George Boothby trying to hold back what is a very angry train of cars behind him. And of course, these could be crucial points for the championship. Boothby, P9 as it stands, has been up and down the order with all the chaos that has taken place today. And there's going to be a big squabble on the final lap. That's Jardier now trying to go towards the outside line, in towards the Melbourne hairpin. Very deep on the entry was Eric Delfante. Gives a little bit of a nudge to Tanzvinza Hacker, who's still glued to the rear diffuser of George Boothby, who now may have his teammate coming up behind him, because Jardier is absolutely flying at this point in time, trying to go all the way around the outside. There's a lot of bumping together here. Gets the power down. You can see Delfante in the mirror as well. And it is the Honda that's going to be able to power through. Leon Burns on the charge as well. But now, what does Jardier look to do? Does surely, at this early stage of the championship, there's not going to be quite that same level of team orders at Veloce, and I don't think there is. Jardier makes his way past 3 cars in about as many corners and goes up into P9. Great surge through the field, 14 positions gained for Jardier then, as George Boothby still has a lot to contest with, as Sam Gaskell has made his way past his teammate, Timo Carper, who's had a big moment through the final part of the lap. But we need to take a short moment, despite all the chaos up and down the order, to have a look at one man who was gifted a lead at the beginning of this race, was 4 seconds in the lead, and then kept his nerve. He nailed the strategy, and in the end, despite the charge from Castorino, he's going to win here at Donington Park. Tinko van der Velde rises to the top step of the podium once again, and does it in fashion. Meanwhile, we cut back to this crazy fight. George Boothby holding on for dear life. He's trying to see if he can stay inside that top 10. Just 3 more corners to go, as then the Boatley of Tanzvinza Hacker versus Leon Burns around the outside. Walsingham's here as well. George Boothby just hoping that they all come to blows behind so that he can survive to the end. Jardier's disappeared up the road. Leon Burns almost onto the grass. Boothby trying to desperately hold on to this one, and that's a big send from Leon Burns. Then up the inside, and Boothby surely will be out-tracked. There's contact at the exit. He won't stay inside the top 10. Leon Burns gets the job done. Who's it going to go to? By the time they get to the line, it is P11 for George Boothby in the end. Delfante, Tanzvinza Hacker, and Aidan Walsingham. And Sam Gaskell as well, as rightly noted in the chat. A massive charge from him in the final stages. He was rapid on the slick tyres. 29 ones versus 31 nines from Huben and Karppinen. So he was just reeling them in at such a great rate of knots. But your podium, Tinko van der Velde, Amadeo Castorino, and Luke Whitehead with that stellar move in the final few moments of the race then. And I think those that went later into the stint and pitted onto the wet tyres, they were the ones that lost out. Those that went late and went onto the slicks, some of them ended up gaining. I think Castorino lost out overall, but Tinko van der Velde's strategy, I think, definitely was by far the best one. He got himself onto those wet tyres, kind of undercut his way relative to a lot of the rest of the grid in the beginning part of that second stint, and then just got a margin that no one was able to stick with in the end. He did a 32.7 on the final lap of the race compared to a 28.5 of Castorino. So it shows the advantage that the slicks have by the end of the race, but that gap was just simply insurmountable by the end of it. But my goodness, what a crazy evening of action once again. Donington Park, mixed conditions, delivering the goods, and a fantastic race all the way until the end. And apparently Oystein Brenham to the fastest lap of the race on 28.3 at the very end of all of that one. So congratulations to him as well. But my goodness, The Pro Series, as always, delivering crazy, crazy action. Hopefully, talk to our podium finishers in just a moment and see exactly how they are feeling after what was a very busy race once again in the 4th round of the Case King Pro Series. But if you did enjoy that amazing bit of action over the last 60 minutes, do consider giving the channel a follow, because it is just like that every single week that we go racing here in the Pro Series. So do stay in touch with the series to come, because as we make our way a third of the way through the season, things are heating up. Clearly, 4 different winners in as many races, and Donington Park showing exactly the sorts of things we can come to expect in the rounds on the way. But we'll look to bring in our podium finishers from today, and I'm sure a man that is going to be smiling ear to ear in that Mercedes, a beautiful double overtake in the final few moments of the race. Luke Whitehead charging to P3. Congratulations on another podium, and welcome back to the comms box. It might not have been a race win that I'm sure you would have dearly have loved to have had around here, but you must be so proud and happy with how that drive came together in the end.
Well, first off, good evening, John. It's been a while. I'm glad to be back. Yeah, really unexpected, to be honest with you. I've had a bit of a torrid month, I'd say, of results. Not really had the best pace, not really driven the best. Had a bit of bad luck thrown in there as well. And that was no exception today. After getting blocked in quali, I was about 2/10 up, and some guy just wasn't even on a lap, pulled in front of me into the chicane, and we ended up being 13, I think, in quali, which, yeah, far from ideal. And then we were blessed with a bit of good luck when everyone exploded at turn 1. And that person,
To put it bluntly.
yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at the replay, but everyone was backwards and like off the track. So I was like, okay, I'll have these, thank you. Red carpet laid down for the first time in this race. And then, yeah, we were kind of cruising around a little bit quicker than Kevin. I think Kevin was having some connectivity and some other issues as well. Eventually, we got past him. And by that point, I already kind of knew what strategy I was going to go with. I knew I was going to pit for dries like 15 minutes into the race. And then, we didn't want to fight Timu too hard, because I was like, I don't want to lose time, fighting. And then, yeah, 6 ends up being the right call. Timu and Dario were fighting hell for leather. I was a bit bemused as to why, given that Dario had a penalty. It seemed a bit unusual for Timu and Dario to be fighting each other that hard, because all it did was just lose them time and bring me into the fold. And then, massive shout out to Nicholas Huben, who lifted off down the back straight and let me go past. I've massively appreciated that. And yeah, the two, well, Dario and Timu basically laid a red carpet again for me to just overtake them both. I didn't really have to do anything. They just took each other out, and I got through. And yeah, P13 to P3. So I'm really chuffed. And as I said, I barely had to do anything. Just everyone kind of did their own thing, and I profited, really. So yeah, I'll take it.
I think, yeah, I mean, you are too humble, Luke. You have to put yourself in those scenarios to really capitalize. But I have to say, there has certainly been quite the theme with Veloce and double overtakes in crucial moments in final portions of races. But yeah, you position yourself so perfectly in that squabble. And was it, when you have a situation like that, is it are you just constantly just monitoring every single movement that those guys are making in front of you, and you never know quite when it's going to happen, or is it a pattern that you saw from the previous couple of laps and thinking that could be the time to strike?
Yeah, well, I saw them fighting and taking 10 bells out of each other every corner. They were smashing into each other on the straights and in the corners. And I was like, either they're both going to spin each other out, or they're going to go wide somewhere. And I kind of knew, 3-4 laps before I even got there, I was like, okay, they're going to do something stupid, and I'm going to take the position. And they did. A little bit sooner than I expected, I'll be honest. I kind of expected to be there the whole, for the rest of the race. But, we got through clean, and yeah, 0 complaints from my side. I'm very, very happy with it. So, yeah, as I say, mad, race, and very unexpected P3. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. A very well-deserved charge to the podium from yourself. We'll be heading to a bit of a different track for next week, Spa-Francorchamps, for the 5th round of the season. Of course, a very tricky, technical, and unforgiving circuit of that. Wildly different to Donington Park in many ways, but just as threatening in some. Any ideas how yourself and that Mercedes might get on around the Belgian countryside?
Honestly, haven't got a Scooby, mate. I've not got a clue. I'm not very keen on Spa. and I'm still learning the Merc. Granted, I'm relatively okay in it, but still lacking a fair bit of knowledge. So I don't know. I think the car goes pretty well at Spa, but it has to be in the right hands, and I'm not sure I'm there yet. At least compared to the factory guys. So just gotta take a bit of prep, collect myself after this week, and then yeah, fingers crossed we'll be fighting up the sharp end.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, you've got some brilliant momentum that you can take from your drive tonight at Donington Park and use that as a good springing step heading to Spa. So I'm sure that there will be no doubt that you'll be at the pointy end of the field once more. Luke, amazing race from you. Congratulations on another podium to add to your tally. A stellar drive from you tonight. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and look forward to seeing how you get on next week at Spa.
Oh, likewise, John. Take care of yourself, mate.
Take care, Luke. Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Great stuff then from Luke Whitehead. A very, very happy chappy indeed, and rightly so, in that Mercedes. And as Kylo, our resident statistician, always keeping us in the loop. A 22nd podium to add to the British drivers tally. Only one behind Korecka, so almost making it into the top 3 podium finishers or podium visitors for the Pro Series. Incredible stuff. Speaking of a driver that has visited the podium multiple times, and in fact 4 for 4 over the course of this season, Amadeo Castorino going again in P2. A great race and charged back to second, Amadeo, after a beginning which I'm sure had was a high mouth moment for you and also your championship situation as well. But as always, you got your head down, you managed to remain unflapped in a race that was so full of drama, and you delivered a great second place finish in the end. How are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, at the end, good. In turn one, I wasn't feeling good because I was like, oh no, race it's over. Because I mean, I was completely responded. I have like 30 cars behind me, so could be a lot more wrong than that. Like 2 minutes of damage and race over. Like let's say I was unlucky, but then I was lucky because it didn't end that bad. Like I only lost 3 position, and luckily also I had a lot of pace, especially with user tires on wet condition. And I think maybe without that content, I could fight with Tinko for the win. For sure, was very hard to overtake in case. But I saw that he was also slower than Yemulo on user tires, and I was gaining like half a second every lap on him. So, I mean, it was hard, but maybe I had the chance to fight for the win. But P2 is still very good because I I gained some points on the championship to my rivals. So, I mean, like, yeah, could be better, but I'm pretty happy about the result, especially because of the qualifying. I made my personal best from practice, and also Misano. I made my personal best on the official quali. That is pretty weird because usually I'm pretty bad on qualifying, but apparently with this car, I can get to the limit more consistently. So that's good.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a champion's drive in terms of bouncing back from the chaos of the opening lap and then charging on up to P2 in the end. As you say, Tinko van der Velde maybe would have been a little bit more in reach if that incident on the opening lap hadn't happened. How much, when you were thinking about your strategic options, obviously Tinko, when on the earlier side, he went for a second set of wet tyres at the halfway point in the race. Were you confident that the slick tires was going to be the better way for you to go in that second stint? Were you worried or nervous it was going to be the incorrect call? What was the thoughts going through your head when you were trying to make that judgment in your car?
Yeah, I was a bit nervous also because like I was P2 and like from the start, and Butby was starting like P9 something like that, which is like my strongest rival at the moment in the championship. And so like when it's like that, you want the best easy race as ever without crazy strategy and something. But yeah, so I was scared because I know that Tinko was on the wet, but I didn't know if it was the correct strategy. And I mean, I wasn't doing my race for covering only Tinko. Like I was scared that maybe the track was drying very quickly and losing a lot of position. And I was thinking, like my thought was, the track is damp right now, and it's raining. So when it stopped to rain, it shouldn't take too long to go to dry condition because it's already damp. It's not full wet. There are not a lot of rain on track, but apparently I was wrong because it takes a lot of time to going from damp track to grazy. Only like on the last 5-6 minutes go to greasy track, and for sure wasn't the right strategy because like when Tinko went to the pit, he was only like 3.5 seconds in front of me, and at the end of the race he was 10 seconds ahead of me. So for sure wasn't the right strategy. Also because the Nissan was very good on wet tires on dump track because it's able to have lower temperature on the tires, but that's an issue when you do the opposite when you are on dry tires on a slippery track. And I wasn't able to put on temperature my tires. In fact, I think I was slower than Yemuro and Whitehead that they had dry tires as well. But luckily I had a bit of margin on them, so I managed to finish P2.
Absolutely. So yeah, maybe not quite the out and out optimal result that you could have got from that race. The circumstances being different, but still a very solid result. And we know from your championship winning season that ultimately consistency is key to winning those titles. And a fourth visit to the podium in as many races is exactly what sort of you need to be delivering over the course of a championship to rise to the top of the standings once more. Brilliant drive from you tonight, but I do want to cast your mind over to the fifth round of the season. We'll be heading to Spa. Now, of course, a very different type of circuit, similar sorts of threats potentially, with some mixed conditions as well, perhaps, and also some mighty long straights and uphill sections where I'm sure Godzilla will be in potentially a fairly happy territory. Are you looking forward to that one? Do you think it'd be another one where you can look to strike at the top end of the grid, or is it a little bit uncertain at the moment?
I don't know, like for sure I like more Spa than Donington. Like Donington, it's not a track that I like, but luckily went with a good result. Spa, I like the track, but I'm not sure about the Nissan because usually the Nissan in the high speed corner is a bit difficult to drive because it's not a stiff car. It's very soft, so it's moving a lot. And yeah, for sure. And I'm not sure about also the top speed. Like for sure, I will have a very good exit from turn one on Spa. But I don't know about the top speed because I think with the Nissan you are still with a high wing in that track. So I mean I didn't expect to be slow on top speed, but I'm not sure that I will be also that strong. And yeah, also fun fact about this race, like the biggest mistake, if someone is wondering why I didn't stream that race, is because instead of put go live stream on OBS, I put like recording because I'm pretty dumb apparently. So that's why I wasn't streaming if someone is asking.
It happens to the best of us. You can drive pretty nearly to perfection, but sometimes every now and again you have to show that you're human, and if that's the way that you end up doing it, there are worse ways to make mistakes. But yeah, unfortunate stuff on that front. But still, you at least to those who are viewing over on the LFM stream, you gave a brilliant series of racing for everyone to enjoy. So yeah, congratulations, Amadeo, on another brilliant podium, another fantastic drive for your season, and we look forward to seeing how you and that Nissan get on Spa. By the sounds of it, should be an interesting one. So thanks for popping in for an interview, and we'll catch you next week then.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, Amadeo. Great stuff there. Talking to the man that finished P2 today, and clearly happy to have bounced back from that result after what was a manic opening bid on the first lap of the race. But there was one man that was remarkably unfazed by the entire thing, and that was, of course, your race winner, Tinko van der Velde. You must have had the biggest of smiles when you exited turn one, Tinko, and seeing the chaos unleash in your rearview mirrors. But then after that, of course, as you have so often done when you're in those positions, you got your head down, you then drove away from the pack, executed strategy perfectly, and dominated around here at Donington Park. You must be pretty happy and chuffed with that result tonight.
Hello, guys. Good evening. Yeah, after turn one, I was like kind of laughing. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't see anyone in the mirrors. Like everyone was gone. It was just like in my own race only. So that was really lucky for me. That gave me a lot of headroom and made it quite easy for me. But then I got quite worried with the strategy because I had no clue what to do until the lap I pitted. Like I had no idea. So that was really stressful. But luckily, I still managed to make the right call with what I had because I didn't fuel till the end of the pit window. So the fresh wets, that was luckily the good option, and luckily my tires stayed in good enough conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very tricky one to judge, and there was such a mixture up and down the field, and then those late charges at the end, with Luke Whitehead as well making a couple of positions with a few minutes to go. And I mean, the lap times wise, those guys were lapping somewhere between kind of three or so seconds quicker than you in those final moments. But of course, you had that margin that you gained from that initial kind of relative undercut that you'd done with that earlier stop onto wet tyres. I'm just interested because out of our podium finishers, you were the only one that had the wet tyres in that second stint in the race. How tricky was it to try to preserve those tyres in those drying conditions and deal with the overheating, deal with all the graining, and just keep them in good enough nick that they would stick with you until the end of the race?
Yeah, I've never driven McLaren in these conditions with the wets and the dry, so it was quite a new experience. But it felt a lot better than I'm used to compared to other cars. So I'm not sure if that's this track or what it was, but I barely dropped pace when the wets were overheating compared to normal wet pace. So the tires stayed relatively good and was nice to drive. I was driving a TC1, so it wasn't too hard on the throttle as well. And yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised how well it drove.
Yeah, because I think, of course, in your championship-winning season when you had the Audi R8, I'm not quite sure it would have preserved its rear
Yeah,
tyres
they didn't do the same thing.
in the same way. But so yeah, that McLaren's serving you very well this evening with that package and allowing you to deliver beautifully. And also that qualifying session, just to touch upon that before we cast our minds to next week, of course, amazing pole position from you. We heard in the chat that you went about 0.003 of a second quicker than you had in the practice session leading up to that as well. How much were you hoping for that 24 to come through? Because it was right there. It was just a couple of thousand shy. Do you think it was on the table? Was it there for the taking?
Definitely was. I was on my last lap, I believe. I was on 4.8, so
Oh.
I was for the
well, just to really kind of wipe the smiles off everyone else's faces. But so
there was a bit more time, but yeah, it was all in the first sector, I believe, because my mid and last sector was really good on the lap, but I didn't do a run up. I think, or it was really bad, so my first sector was a bit off.
Oh, well, I'm sure that's certainly something that your competitors would have noted of that the margin could have been significantly greater in all of that. But you very respectfully decided to keep it just a little bit tighter in the pack, so we had some more tension at the end of quali. So much appreciated, Tinko. But absolutely fantastic performance all evening long from you. Pole position, and of course the race win, lights the flag victory from yourself, and just dominating in that from start to finish. Of course, I'm sure you'll be relishing in the enjoyment of tonight's race. But I do want to cast your mind over to Spa for next week, which I feel like with this McLaren could again maybe be a pretty handy one. We're talking about Amadeo a moment ago, and he was saying that he was worried that Nissan might struggle in the high speed. Also, it should have good acceleration out of the source, but top speed might be a bit difficult because you have to tend to run quite high wing for a car like that. Whereas this McLaren, I think traditionally have been able to kind of get away with having a bit more of a trimmed down layout. So you're thinking you could be competitive at the pointy end of the grid once again for Spa?
I mean, it's really difficult to say. I've not really an idea how the bob is there, so the bob's gonna matter a lot, like always, and I'm not sure what each car has, but yeah, the top speed should always be fine on McLaren on the straights there, because you're running really low wing, which is good for the top speed, but the tire wear will suffer a bit because of that. So yeah, I'm not sure what's gonna happen. I think Nissan, it's always gonna have good top speed, so I think he will be completely fine, to be honest, on the straights. But yeah, hope my tires will survive there, and hope the pop is good again.
Yeah, we will have to wait and see, keeping us in suspense and intention, Tinko, to see how round 5 of the season goes, because we've had some amazing races so far, and I have a feeling we are going to have a cracker next week as well. But for tonight, Tinko, congratulations on the amazing results you've had all evening on. A very well-deserved victory at the end of 60 minutes here at Donington Park. So thank you for hopping in for an interview, and look forward to seeing how you get on at Spa next week.
Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers, Tinko. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Great stuff there, talking to a very happy young Dutchman who drove ever so brilliantly over the course of the evening. Tinko gifted a wonderful gap at the beginning of the race as he saw carnage unfold in his rearview mirrors, but in true champion scenario and state of mind, he then just got his head down, did what he needed to do, and delivered the goods when it mattered. And of course, Tinko, I mean, you could never write him out of a championship campaign anyway. He's a reigning champion. He's a champion in this series for a reason. When he did, he was absolutely formidable. He's a world-class driver, and I'm sure he's going to be continuing to be at the pointy end of the field. The opening couple of races maybe weren't showing his best, but Massano, he was very much in the mix. Clearly today, a very strong performance from him, and Spa could once again also be a pretty handy circuit for the McLaren, so keep an eye on that man and see where he can put himself in the thick of the action over the course of the next few races. But before we look forward to all of those, let's have a bit of a reflection over tonight's evening of incredible action, because at the end of that race, Tinko van der Velde was your winner ahead of Castorino, Whitehead, Gaskell, Iemelo, Carpenter, Huben, Lawrence, Jardy out to 9th in the end with Burns, Boothby, Delfanta, Tansvisa, Hacker, Walsingham, and Vassner. To the end of the top 15. Of course, Iemelo dropping to 5th position with his penalty in the end. Sam Gaskell managing to sneak his way up to P4. Brenham, Bajic, Tadai, Korekas bouncing back after that stop-go 10-second penalty for the lap 1 incident. Rodriguez, Frey, Broel, Foch, Charlotte, Schneckenberger, Felder, Velikopolski, and Barrett to the 28th spot, with Price and Manar to DNS. And unfortunately, then your final DNF of the evening, Fabrizio Campanella. For that one. Donington Park taking no prisoners over the course of the evening, showed every threat that the British countryside can pose in the form of usually grey skies and weather with all of that. And certainly is an amazing location, always delivering such fantastic racing, and I am sure that Spa will look to do the very same next week. It is a legendary historical circuit for a reason, and it so often puts on fantastic action, so do look to be around very much for that one. But after an incredible evening of action, that is it from Donington Park. Thank you everybody so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this evening's action, do consider following the channel here on Twitch. You can stay in tune with all the action to come in the Case King Pro Series. You can also subscribe here as well if you want to show a little bit of extra love and support to those hidden heroes that make all of this possible. And if you want to catch up on anything that you've missed from tonight's race, recap on everything that kicked off, and also see some other parts of the season as well, you can head over to the LFM YouTube channel and see everything there too. So do consider giving that a subscription. If you have been watching these guys drive these wonderful GT3 cars and you fancy getting behind the wheel yourself and never fear you can head over to the lowfuelmotorsport.com website, get yourself a license, you work your way up through the ranks and compete for some amazing prizes like those available in the Case King Pro Series. You can also get stuck into endurance, daily racing, Duro Cup, all sorts of things to partake in. And if maybe ACC isn't quite your cup of tea, you can also do so much, of course, on the OG Assetto Corsa 1. There are single-seater races, MX-5, Renault Clios, I think, as well, sports car racing, multi-class fun, and so much to get stuck into there. So do look to give that a look-see as well. And if you just want to be a part of this amazing community, make some friends, enjoy everything, both in the world of virtual motorsport and real motorsport, you can join the Discord server as well. You'll be welcomed in with open arms by everybody, and you can share pictures of your dogs, your cats, you name it, and make some good friends. We would love to have you there. And as I'm technically reminded in the chat, that of course Automobilista 2 on the way to the platform as well. Another fantastic sim with such an amazing range of content, and that'll be making its way to the world of LFM in due course. So keep an eye out for that as well, because there is so much fun to be had on that platform too. So definitely lots to get stuck into in the future, and we would love to have you around in each and every capacity here in the world of low fuel motorsport. But after an incredible evening of action, that is everything that the 4th round of the Case King Pro Series has to deliver. 4 different winners in as many rounds. We continue the streak, and I'm sure that the chaos, the drama, the action will continue on into Spa-Francorchamps next week. So do look to join us, same time, same place for that round, because I reckon it is going to be a good one. So thank you everybody so much for watching. But until next time then, it's goodbye.